Okay, hey, hey, horror film fanatics. Um, I just, I was, um, I was just thinking about something, and I just noticing, has, I just noticed this like one little thing. Um, this one little thing. Nobody's talking about. At least I don't think anybody's talking about Dan Schneider or Nickelodeon anymore, or the exposure of the documentary that never bothered to make. I mean, it made somewhat of an impact. It made somewhat of an impact, but I don't really think that there were, uh, there were any changes made. Um, it felt like the only reason that this documentary was made was to profit off of these children's trauma. That's the only reason that's the only reason Quiet on Set was even made. Um, which is really tragic. Which is really tragic. Because I watched some of the documentary. I watched like some parts of the documentary. Um, from what I learned from watching all the video documentaries that have been made about Nickelodeon, all the video docs on YouTube that were made about Nickelodeon or Dan Schneider, Nickelodeon and Dan Schneider. Pretty much Quiet on Set. Pretty much Quiet on Set. I mean, they did sort of expose Dan, but not really, because one of the people, Kate Taylor, she said that Dan, I don't think we can really blame Dan for what's going on with Nickelodeon. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. You can. I believe you can. Because Dan Schneider was really the one that was really making profits off of exploiting children. I mean, think about it. I believe he did some really nasty thing, some really like nasty, disgusting things to Amanda Bynes, which is why she ended up so like messed up and like traumatized. Because yeah, that's what working with Dan Schneider. That's what working with Dan Schneider will do to a person. It did the same thing to Jeanette McCurdy. Yeah, he's not a good guy to work. He's not a good guy to even work for. Like, he not only exploited some of these children, but he abused some of them. Verbally, he verbally abused them. He blackmailed them. With their own careers. Like he told Jeanette McCurdy, and he probably told every kid that he worked for, he told like every kid that worked for him, like, yeah, if you don't toe the line, I'm going to ruin your career. I'm going to ruin your career. I'm going to make sure you don't have one. That's probably because, like, when Jeanette McCurdy said that you would work at Yogurtland if you didn't work for me. Like, really? I mean, to say that to a kid, to have the audacity to say that to a child, who is literally working for you, and you're supposed to be like this really, you're coming off on all these interviews. He came off on all these interviews as like, oh, he was such a good guy, and he's such a good guy, and such a friend, and he's so friendly and charming. Yeah, he's so friendly and charming. But yeah, behind the scenes, he was like screaming. He was screaming at these kids at the top of his lungs. Like, I mean, the dude literally screamed at a 6-year-old child for not getting his lines right. Like, why? I mean, look, I used to love Nickelodeon when I was a kid. I used to love Nickelodeon as a kid. I loved it, man. I was in my teens when they were bringing out these big hits like Ren and Stimpy and Doug. Doug was this wholesome show. Doug was a pretty good show. I loved Doug as a kid. I loved Doug as a teenager, but my most of my time was spent pretty much watching like Beavis and Butthead, just watching Beavis and Butthead brain rot comedy, because I was being like really bullied at school. I was being bullied at school like horrendously. I was being abused at school like horrendously. And yeah. But thankfully, like, I found my love for horror. I found my love for the horror genre. I found my love for the slasher genre. Which I still love to this day. But then I also liked kid shows. But you grow older, and you grow wiser. Of course, and again, nobody knew about the kind of stuff that Nickelodeon was doing behind the scenes, because I had no idea about it. Because all these like horrific things were happening behind the scenes, because this was before like internet. This was way before like iPhones and internet or whatever. I don't think internet was yet invented. It was still like, I guess it was there, but but apparently as I got older, I watched shows like The Amanda Show, and I watched all that, and yeah, I had no idea that Drake Bell was. I didn't have any idea that Drake Bell was like being horrifically abused the way he was abused. I mean, what happened to him was horrific. I mean, this guy Brian Peck was literally a John Wayne Gacy protege, which is really sick and twisted. If you think about it. They should have done background checks on all these people before they handed them jobs. Especially Dan Schneider. I think they should have done like a background check on Dan Schneider. Of course, Dan Schneider, like, he didn't really harm like a minor. He did harm a minor, but it wasn't like, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, he did do something to, I think, like a 12-year-old girl or something. That was it was sort of hearsay. It was sort of hearsay, but I believe it. But yeah, I believe it. Because, I mean, look at him. Look at him. I mean, the dude looks like he would do something like that. I mean, this dude's pretty much Jabba the Hutt. Like, and now that I just recently watched Star Wars, and you know, of course, seeing Jabba the Hutt, like, I thought of Dan Schneider. And like, ugh. But yeah. But yeah, I mean, this guy was creating it seemed to me like it was like a criminal enterprise, which is what it was. But yeah, I just, there's people that are still supporting Nickelodeon. How has Nickelodeon, man, stayed in business? I don't understand it, man. It's basically a haven for criminals. But boy, it seems like once it gets to the news, they're like, oh, we got to get rid of this person. It's like, oh, we got to get rid of this person and act like we had nothing. We didn't act like we didn't know about it when you did. Brian Peck had literally worked at Nickelodeon for a long time. I mean, Dan Schneider, I believe Dan Schneider referred him to somebody, to Albie Hecht. Oh, like hey, I know this dude. Like, hey, I know this dude from Return of the Living Dead. I know this dude from Return of the Living Dead. You know, hire him. Because, you know, somebody like Dan Schneider, even though Dan Schneider before then, you know, didn't have power back then, he still could have referred Brian Peck to Albie Hecht and say, hey, why don't you hire this guy? He'll be great. He'll be a dialect coach. And what ended up happening? He ended up harming a child. In a children's network. And he wasn't the only one. Jason Michael Handy, another guy that was a literal self-confessed, you know, he was literally a self-confessed, you know, he ended up harming a child, and he also got fired. Brian Peck also got fired for what he did. But nobody knew. But I think everybody knew. I think people knew that it was Drake Bell. They you know what I mean. They weren't gonna. I have a terrible feeling that Nickelodeon knew. Well, of course, now that Drake Bell confirmed it. Oh yeah, they knew. Drake Bell confirmed it. Oh yeah, they knew. They knew what he was doing to me. They knew what he was doing to me. They didn't care. They didn't care. Which says a lot. Okay, there's